Good Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Browns off the bye week, getting ready for the Miami Dolphins. Back at work out in Berea. And some good news as we take a look. The Browns getting Denzel Ward back on the field. Still not 100% sure that he will play against the Dolphins, but trending in that direction. Wyatt Teller also trending in the direction that he would play. Some other good health news. Chase Winovich and Jerome Ford both designated to return from the injured reserve by the Browns. That means that 21-day window to activate them and put them on the 53-man roster has now started to be counted. And some concerning news, I guess. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah with his kind of ailing knee. Really the only player who was not on the field today during the open portion of practice. Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Jack Conklin, David Njoku rode stationary bikes, worked out on the side. See that coming from Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. So welcome, Scott Petrak, into the show. Scott, it seems like they're making progress towards getting some of the guys that have missed significant time back on the field.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It was good to see Denzel Ward and Wyatt Teller. I mean, those are two Pro Bowl guys. And I think Martin Emerson Jr. and Yelder Furholt did fine filling in for those guys, but you miss it when it's Pro Bowlers, right? And especially going to this, this important second half of the season, number one, and then the matchup in Miami. You're going to need as many corners as you have, especially your best corner, if you want to slow down Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So it was good to see Ward out there. Kevin Stefanski said he hasn't completely cleared the protocol, but if he can make it through today's practice, that's kind of like, it seems like the final step, and then we'll see better Wednesday if he's going to be able to go on Sunday.
Yeah, without question, you got Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, you have Gesicki, who can be a threat. So you're going to need as many guys as possible to cover. I know you wrote an article, and let's take us through this. Dissecting a frustrating first half of the season, good, bad, and what to watch for in the second half. Take us through those, just kind of what you came, how you arrived at those conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, the record should have been better, right? 3-5, they lose 4 close games, combined 9 points for for 4 of the 5 losses. So that's part of the bad or the ugly. The good, you had Cade York hit the, game winner in the opener against Carolina. I think Jacoby Brissett's connections with Amari Cooper and David Njoku and Donovan Peoples-Jones have been part of the good, and it may be, unexpected that Jacoby would play this well and have such strong connections with that trio of targets. And then you had the Myles Garrett car accident that was a big story from the first half. You had the injury situation. We covered a couple of those guys, plus you lose 2 middle linebackers for the season, and Anthony Walker Jr. and Jacob Phillips. And then when you look toward the second half, part of it's Deshaun Watson, right? What does he look like when he comes back after being 700 days between regular season games? Where are the Browns when he comes back? How many games do they have to win with him if they're trying to get to the playoffs? Those are things I know we'll monitor from here until he comes back. Just how good a position are they in, and can he get them over the hump? And then how does that offense look with Deshaun Watson, right? Kevin Stefanski has not had a top-tier quarterback in his time with the Browns. And I think his offense has been pretty good without a top-tier quarterback. But how does it look with a guy that not only is he a big-time passer, but a big-time running threat? And you see it across the league. Justin Fields against Miami yesterday, or even Josh Allen running against the Jets. That's such a huge part of some offenses, and that's something Deshaun Watson brings that the Browns just haven't had. And I think we'll start to see at least some of the expansion of Kevin Stefanski's playbook with Watson.
Yeah, and I think that's a really valid point, because it gives you another way to pressure the defense. Think about how much more effective Nick Chubb is, because they're going to do the little run-pass option, read type of deal with those two. And it sets up to give you a lot of things that a defense has to consider.
There's no doubt about it. And that's just strictly from like a game plan perspective, right? You can run him, which frees up one more blocker. You run Deshaun Watson. Or you're right, you can run kind of a zone read thing with Nick Chubb. The defensive ends have to be honest, because if they get up the field too quickly, Watson can cut underneath them. And then you have just the kind of improvisational aspect of having a big-time athlete at quarterback is he can scramble for first downs. And we've seen Jacoby Brissett do that a little bit, but not to the degree that Deshaun Watson can. And if you remember some of his highlights when he was playing, they were remarkable. The sacks he would evade, then he'd make a throw downfield, or he'd run for a first down or run for a touchdown. You know, you can't even plan those things, but they're backbreakers for the defense. So I do think there's layers there with Deshaun Watson. I don't know how much of it we'll see in the final 6 games. Depends how quickly he gets acclimated to the situation, especially with all that rust you would assume he has. But I do think this offense has the potential to grow immensely with him at quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree. Just keep in mind it's an elite level athlete that will be playing quarterback. And the Browns really haven't had that in a while. And I don't remember the last time you could say that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure they have. I mean, Otto Graham was an elite level guy back in the day, right? I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He was a all Big Ten basketball player at Northwestern, I think. But obviously Bernie wasn't, and Sipe wasn't, and I got a hard time coming up with that guy, especially when you combine the. He's a really good passer, right? The last time he played a full season, he led the league in passing. So it's not just he's a runner. He can do it all, assuming he comes close to playing at that level he played at, before all the off-field stuff.
Well, Kevin Stefanski met with me today after practice, trying to explain how to use the time off to get things headed in the right direction for this Browns team to improve.
The bye week's important to reframe and look at where you are as a team and spend some time on each one of those levels. So we spent some time as a team this morning talking about where we are, things that we want to do better, and then I think then you break up and you do that from the offensive, defensive, special teams level. You break into positions. You really go back to each player and say, all right, here's some things you're doing well. Here are some things that we need to do better. And I think if you have that mindset of each part of this team is going to try to do their job and do their job a little bit better, I think that's where improvement comes from.
And, Scott, they need it in the next 3 weeks. I mean, it's like you're cramming for that final, and then just by the nature of the upgrade at quarterback, you should see some improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to – this isn't to say Jacoby Brissett hasn't played well, because he's given him a chance to win every game but that New England game, and that wasn't just his fault. Nobody played well that day. But you would expect a boost with Deshaun Watson, and it's also like a schedule factor. The next few games look like they're hard. And Miami's 6-3, right? We know how good Buffalo is, even though they lost yesterday. And then you have Tampa Bay who's struggling, but still have Tom Brady. And then you get the final part of the schedule, which doesn't seem as hard. So, obviously Watson is a demarcation factor. But even if the Browns, even if it was just going to be Jacoby Brissett's show, you'd say, okay, well, they need to win X number of the next whatever games. And as it turns out, I think out of these next 3, they need to win 2 of them. Like, that gets you to 5-6, and that feels reasonable to ask Deshaun Watson to go from 5-6 to either 9-8 or 10-7, whatever it's going to take to get in the playoffs. Like, that number seems doable to me. 4-7, you're not out of it, but that's such a big stretch. He could do no worse than 5-1, and might even have to go 6-0, and that's just asking a lot of anybody.
Yeah, I would agree. Along those lines, Bleacher Report, most dangerous teams on the fringe of the playoff race. So they go with the Bengals, the Browns, the Chargers, the Patriots, the 49ers, and the Buccaneers. And their rationale for the Browns are playing well enough to qualify for the playoffs. It means the defense has vastly improved. That'll be bad news for teams that have to tackle Nick Chubb come January. And again, I tend to agree. The question is, can they get to that point? And I just got a feeling you're going to look back at those games early in the year that you gave away, and you're going to go, man, this is why you can't do that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I try not to, I know you can play the schedule game and you can look down the road, and it still feels a little early for that to me, where you start kind of scoreboard watching with, okay, what are the Jets doing? What are the Chargers doing? Even though at some point you're going to have to do that. But I can't get that out of my head either. That you're going to look at it, whether or not it's a win or two that keeps the Browns out of the playoffs, or even a tiebreaker, right? Do they lose a tiebreaker to the Chargers or the Patriots or the Jets, right? One of those games, not that they shouldn't have beaten the Patriots, but those other two games, you look at and go, okay, the Browns could have won that, and not only would it be a win, it would be a head-to-head tiebreaker against, another AFC contender. So I get that. But when you talk about, the Browns being one of those sneaky contenders, it is all about the defense. If the defense plays like it did the last 2 weeks, this team has a chance to go on a run. If the defense reverts and goes, plays like it did early in the season, then I'm not sure Deshaun Watson would make that much of a difference.
Yeah, and the other thing is that Dolphins game is going to be one of those crazy tiebreaker things. So it's almost like I don't want to say it's a divisional game, but it's close to being a divisional game because it has that added importance of having a tiebreaker opportunity down the road.
That's a great point. It's almost like a double, like it counts twice as much almost, yeah.
Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also hear from Kevin Stefanski on one of the young defensive linemen. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as brownzone.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. Why do you think the Browns have a hard time building chemistry and cohesiveness within the team? Now, obviously, just because you love your teammates and have great chemistry doesn't necessarily mean that you will win the Super Bowl, but I'm sure it will help. The Guardians and Cavs are both young teams that absolutely love each other and love playing with each other. And the Guardians got deep into the second round of the playoffs. And the Cavs, they have a chance to do something special as well. Is it harder to build chemistry in football? I would like to think since it's the ultimate team game, football players should have great chemistry. Your thoughts on that? Thanks. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemail. Scott, I think chemistry is harder to build in football because there's more guys. There's more guys on the field. There's more guys in the locker room.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I get the communication breakdowns early in the season, and you can point to a lack of chemistry, but I don't see the Browns not liking each other. I'm in the locker room, 4 times a week. It's not like that jumps out at me. I just think when you lose, you search for answers. I think you're right about chemistry being harder to build for 53 guys. And I also think a factor is when you only play once a week and you lose, everything gets put under a microscope and really examined and you dig. And I just think maybe it's harder in the NFL with such a bright spotlight than it is in other sports where you're playing, 3 games a week or 6 games a week. Yeah,
I think all those factor into it. If there was an easy answer, it would have been fixed. That's the other thing.
Right.
Kevin Stefanski talked about rookie defensive lineman Isaiah Thomas and what he's seen.
As you see him getting more opportunities and a little bit more exposure to him, I think you're seeing a player that's going to do his job every play. He's going to know what to do. He's going to do it. Got his hand on a ball, has gotten a sack. So I just think he's a good all-around football player the more reps that he gets.
Scott, that sounds like a guy that's going to see some more opportunities on the football field as well.
Yeah, and I'm working on a story about Isaiah for probably I'll write it Tuesday. And I talked to him today, and he was really slowed down by that broken hand. You know, he had such a great preseason opener against Jacksonville and then broke his hand the next week in practice, and it really affected him. He said he didn't get the cast off until, like, it was either week 4 or 5. He wasn't exactly sure, but it was the Chargers game or the Patriots game. So you're well into the season. He could only line up on one side. He couldn't use his hands like like all pass rushers do, but that's one of his strengths is his hand usage, and he's obviously limited when you have one hand in a cast. So now he's starting to feel more like himself. He's taking tips from Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, and he really is positive and excited about what he can do over the second half and build on that Monday night game where he did have his first sack and then deflected a pass. And he said he knew the sack was coming because he could see the weakness in the offensive lineman, and then he went and exploited it.
Yeah, and you know what? He was shown up. He definitely flashed against the Bengals. So let's look forward, and that would be a welcome addition to that defensive line. All right, these are a couple of names that, for whatever reason, just will not go away. Former Texans wide receiver Will Fuller has thought about retirement, but there's been one team he's shown interest in joining. The Browns, with former teammate Deshaun Watson. Another name that is surfacing, Ndamukong Suh. NFL trade deadline reports such teams as the Raiders, Chiefs, Browns, Titans, Buccaneers. Scott, I really don't see either of those happening. I just don't. Maybe Fuller if the Browns wanted to bring him in once Watson gets back. But I think they want to see their young guys.
Yeah, I think both those moves would have happened by now. Right now, if Donovan Peoples-Jones got hurt, maybe you go get Will Fuller. If one of your two starting D tackles get hurt, maybe Suh. But I mean, I've checked in on Suh before, and I know his agent seemed like he was expressing interest in the Browns, but I never really saw the Browns express interest the other way. So it just feels too late in the season. Not that a move can't be made, but I feel like something would have to happen for one of those two guys to sign. If not, it would have happened by now.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. All right, some bizarre goings-on in Indianapolis. Frank Reich fired. And take a look at this. As Jeff Saturday, a consultant, was named the interim head coach. Jeff Saturday, the first NFL head coach with no college or pro coaching experience since Norm Van Brocklin went from the 1960 NFL MVP with the Eagles to coach the Vikings in 1961. Saturday was a center for the Colts and was a consultant for the team. And then Sean Payton, in an interview with The Athletic about his coaching future, said he thinks at some point he will coach again. He's not done with that. He also said, I think there are some dysfunctional teams in our league, some places where talent can die. I just want to avoid those places. And Scott, that's why for the past 4 or 5 weeks, when people bring up Kevin Stefanski, I'm like, they've changed coaches too often. Be patient and let a young coach figure it out.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And, I think Stefanski's done fine, better than fine in his 2.5 years. It's interesting, though, would Sean Payton consider the Browns dysfunctional? There's plenty of reasons to say yes. You never know. You never know if you pay him enough. You never know if he thinks he has the right quarterback, if that makes up for, perceived dysfunction. But it's interesting. And I certainly, when I heard that Colts news, thought, man, this seems like something the Browns would do. Right? Like, you have this kind of upheaval. You're bringing a guy who's never coached before. He's on ESPN. And all of a sudden, he's your interim coach. So it's weird. Jim Irsay, it kind of felt like he'd stabilized things in Indianapolis. And then this just threw everything for a loop.
Yeah, and again, you just kind of go, wow, thank goodness that isn't our organization when something like that happens.
Yeah, especially Frank Reich's got a great reputation. He's had success there. They haven't given him any stability at quarterback, so it feels like a strange move, and it feels like a move that if you're the next coach, you kind of be wary of. Man, they got rid of this guy probably unwarrantedly, and I think that's been an issue with the Browns, right? They get rid of coaches so fast, you feel like I'm not going to have a chance.
Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we will continue talking Browns. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, this is Ron Cornett from down in Cleveland. Love your show. Lifelong Browns fan since 1963. And I was just calling to see what you guys think as the day gets closer and closer to where we see Deshaun Watson behind center. I was wondering how you think he will be received throughout the league. I'm sure the first test will be in Texas, where God only knows, if they would respect him for what they give him, or they're just going to go all out because he doesn't wear a Texas uniform anymore. So I'd like to know what you guys think about it. Thanks a lot. Love your show. As always, go Browns!
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I think there's probably two ways to separate that. It's going to be fans and players, and I think it's going to be very different.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Dave. And I was going to make that same distinction. I think he's on the road. He's going to be treated poorly by the fans, and you can argue that that's deserved. Kind of like we saw in Jacksonville in that preseason opener, boos and chants and signs. And he's going to have to be ready for it, and the team's going to have to be ready for it. And then players, whether it's right or wrong, I don't think we're going to see a lot of reaction from players. I don't think it's like they're going to go after Deshaun Watson any harder because of the accusations. I suppose I could be wrong about that, but I don't get that sense. I've always thought that he was considered a likable guy around the league. He's been to Pro Bowls, knows, guys across the league. So I do think it's going to be two completely different things.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't, the players, right, wrong, indifferent, I think they kind of view him as one of theirs. That's why the union defended him, vigorously. So fans, yeah, they're going to get after him. Cleveland fans would get after an opposing player that came in. Any reason a fan can get after one of the opposition, they're going to.
Well, for sure. And, you still hear anytime Big Ben's name gets mentioned, people bring it up. Ray Lewis, it's however many years after what happened in Atlanta gets brought up. So this isn't going to go away. But if he's on the team you root for, you tend to ignore it. And if he's on the team you don't like, then you bring it up all the time.
Yep. All right, this is from Pro Football Focus. Midseason roster rankings, strength, weaknesses, and X factors for every starting lineup. So they have the Bills at 1, the Eagles at 2, Chiefs at 3, the Dolphins, who the Browns are playing, at 4, Ravens at 5. Browns are ranked 13th. Now, biggest strength, offensive line since 2020. Cleveland's offensive line, best run blocking grade in the NFL at almost 92, ranks 3rd in pass protection at almost 81. Biggest weakness, interior defensive line. The Browns brought edge defender Jadeveon Clowney back on a 1-year deal, but rank dead last with a 36.2 grade for their interior defender unit. I'm not sure how that equates, but maybe they're saying they could have signed a defensive tackle if they didn't bring Clowney back. X factor for the second half, Deshaun Watson. And I think that's a key. Again, I think I realize he hasn't played in a long time. I realize he looked not good in the preseason game. I don't think it's going to take him games to knock off the rust. It's going to take him a little bit to get back to game speed, but I think he'll get there reasonably quickly.
I would tend to agree. I just wonder if, let's say he gets comfortable by his second game in there. Is there still a play or two that he's hesitant? A read or two that if he were playing every week for the last 2 years, he would make, but he hesitates and either leads an incompletion or an interception, or just he doesn't throw it and he tucks it and runs, whatever. It might take longer. It might take all 6 weeks for him to get fully back to where he had been. But the Browns knew this to some degree, right? This is a long-term move by the Browns. It's not just about 2022, as hard as that is for some people to understand, and I get it because it's a full NFL season. I think it's bigger, but I tend to agree with you. I think he'll be fine in probably by the second or third game, be just about back to normal. But the overall roster thing is interesting. Before the season, I would have had the Browns ranked higher, but there's been positions. They mentioned D tackle. I think you can also look at linebacker, hasn't been super strong. Just particular guys, right, that haven't made the big jump, young guys. Maybe Grant Delpit. His JOK, I don't think he's played as well as people expected. The young receivers that you look at and go, okay, maybe this roster wasn't quite as strong as you thought before the season started.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me ask you this. Do you think injuries have played into it at all? And I bring it up because in talking about some of the guys that have missed, Walker, Phillips, you've had Garrett out. You haven't had your starting quarterback in Deshaun Watson because of a suspension. And I don't want to make excuses. Have injuries played a factor in that, do you think? And I know everybody has injuries.
Right. I mean, and that's the problem. Everybody does have them. I would say, Anthony Walker Jr. was a bigger loss than even I anticipated. And Jacob Phillips wasn't as good when he stepped in, and then I thought he started to play better, and then he gets hurt. Deion Jones played well the other night against the Bengals, but it's a big loss. It's a captain. It's a signal caller. I think he's a big one. And then, anytime Jadeveon Clowney's not on the field, and I know he's got an injury history, right? And last year when he played as many games as he played, that felt like a huge win for him and the team. But when he's out there, he makes a big difference, and he plays hard. Like, I rewatched that Bengals game, and he really plays hard when he's out there and when he's healthy. So if he's back to himself over the final 9 games, I do think that's a big part of this defense continuing to play well like it has the last 2 weeks.
Okay, we refer to these upcoming topics as the Nick Chubb is good portion of the show. And there's so many of them that we generally limit to 1 or 2 per show. Ranking MVP candidates, best players. This is from Bill Barnwell, ESPN. Offensive Player of the Year, number 1, Tyreek Hill, who the Browns will face against the Dolphins coming up Sunday. Number 2, Nick Chubb. And you see metrics, it's less of a contest. You look at Chubb's numbers are kind of ridiculous. It's kind of interesting. Derrick Henry was asked how the best running back on the planet is doing last night by Mike Tirico before in their meeting. He said that would be Nick Chubb. Third is Stephon Diggs. Again, I think because the Browns tend to limit his touches, the numbers aren't as gaudy as they would be. So maybe that's why Nick Chubb doesn't get all of the attention for Player of the Year. But as we tend to say, Nick Chubb is really good.
Oh, he is so good. And I thought that was really interesting what Derrick Henry told the NBC guys. And I agree. I think Nick Chubb's a better runner than Derrick Henry. And I know Henry had a big game last night, and he's really good, right? I mean, he runs for a ton of yards. He has NFL rushing titles. So I'm not taking anything away from him. But it feels like if you get to him before he gets going, you can limit what he does. And that's not easy to do. And I know once he gets the full head of steam, look out. But I think Chubb kind of turns those, the Browns like to call them dirty runs, where there's no room. I think he turns them into something easier and better than Derrick Henry does. And I think he's got another gear that Henry doesn't. So that's why I like Chubb better. Obviously, both guys are great players. And if you didn't have Tyreek Hill, whose numbers are unbelievable, then yeah, Nick Chubb would be right in the running for that Offensive Player of the Year.
Scott Petrick and I are going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention more to the Browns-Dolphins matchup coming up Sunday, one the Browns have to get. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, this is Ryan from Dayton, Ohio. I was just wondering how worried the Browns should be about the Ravens and Bengals continuing to win games, because let's say when they come, they start winning games now, I'm worried that they should be that the Bengals just, destroyed the Panthers today, and we'll see what happens with the Ravens. But thanks for taking my call.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, way too early for that. Browns are 2-1 in the division. Bengals are 0-3. They just got to worry about winning games.
Yeah, that's a fact, Dave. There's no doubt about that. I would say, if you're watching the game tonight, the Monday night game, you want New Orleans to win because the Ravens are obviously heading in the division. And the Ravens' schedule gets a lot easier. And the Browns is hard, and Cincinnati's is hard. And Baltimore's is easiest, when you look at the records of the teams they play. So any losses for the Ravens would be the Browns would be glad to see.
Yeah, without question. And remember, they get the Ravens and the Bengals and the Steelers again with Deshaun Watson, in theory, as their quarterback. All right, Miami's secondary has not been good. Let's take a look at this. They've given up 300 yards passing 4 times this year. 4 of their defensive backs have over 100 passer ratings when targeted. 3rd worst in the league in turnovers. They also gave up 176 yards rushing to Justin Fields. That's the most ever in NFL history by a quarterback in a regular season game. So we look at the Dolphins, and there are some things that can be exploited there.
Yeah, definitely on defense. you should be able to take advantage of some of that. I think, it feels like all the Dolphins games are high scoring, at least lately. That's been like that. Now the Browns are going to have to find that formula where they try to control the clock with their run game and then attack the weaknesses in the secondary that you just pointed out. So we've seen that more lately. And I do think, when Andrew Berry talked about leaning into the strengths of the team, to me, it felt like he was saying, okay, we need to run it a bunch, which we do and we're good at, and then throw it to the guys that we're having success with. And that's Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Njoku, especially deep. If you get everybody focused on stopping the run and you get those one-on-one matchups, we've seen Brissett have success throwing those go balls and those corner routes to Cooper and Peoples-Jones. And I think that's the formula for taking on that Dolphins defense.
I would agree, and we'll go even a little bit deeper into the Dolphins defense. So they're currently giving up almost 25 points a game, 24.9. That's tied for 25th with the Browns. They're giving up almost 246 yards passing a game. That's 23rd in the league. They're giving up 117 rushing. That's 16th. And when you look at it even closer, they're giving up 4.6 yards a carry. That's tied for 19th with the Browns. So you can pass on them, and it looks like you can run on them. There's not much else defensively that. Now they did trade for Bradley Chubb. He didn't play a lot. They kind of rotated him in. I'm sure he will be more involved this coming Sunday.
Yeah, I mean that's the guy to watch on that defense is the impact that he can have. Now I know there's some metrics that really love Chubb, and he's a good player. There's no doubt about it. But he doesn't have the sack numbers that jump out at you, right? The Myles Garrett sack numbers or the TJ Watt sack numbers. He just has never had those. I think he has a good win rate and he's strong, and I think he's pretty good against the run. So it'll be interesting to see how he affects that defense. And, the Browns don't have the running threat at quarterback that the Bears do, but the Browns run attack overall, obviously he's one of the best in the league. So, yeah, I just expect a bunch of points in Miami. I really do.
Yeah, and the other thing is the Browns' offensive line much better than the Bears. The Bears' offensive line they're struggling with it. So it will be interesting. Now, good news. The bad news is there's Waddle, there's Hill, Tua's playing well, you've got Mostert. There's a lot of speed, but that's what the Browns are kind of built to defend. Think about the Bengals. This is an attack that's similar to the Bengals, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great point. I do think, I don't know if any team is built to stop Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Those guys are so good.
That's fair.
Waddle's averaging 17 yards a catch. But the Browns do have a bunch of corners, right? And they have some speed. And if JOK can play, they have speed at linebacker. And so, yeah, I agree with that assessment. Dave, now they got to figure out a plan for Hill. Is it just playing so deep that you give up underneath stuff, or do you challenge him? And if he gets over the top, then you make Tua throw a deep ball. And, I never loved Tua's arm strength, but he does have success throwing the ball deep, even if maybe it doesn't get there as fast as some other guys' balls will get there. So it'll be interesting to see the approach the Browns take. And then if they think they can get home rushing with 4 guys. And if you do, then obviously that just helps the math and the coverage. If you can drop 7, make Tua kind of find the open space while Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney are bearing down on him.
What are some of the matchups that you think are key? If you were going to draw things up for the Browns to come away with a win, what do you see?
Yeah, it would start time of possession like we talked about. I think the less Tua and those guys have the ball, the better off you are, because Mike McDaniel really knows how to design a game plan. He's a new coach, came from the Shanahan system, coaching tree. He was here with the Browns. He was a receivers coach the year that Shanahan was the offensive coordinator here. Really smart guy. Similar to Kevin Stefanski and kind of how they scheme guys open. And, every defense is trying to take away Tyreek Hill. And then I watched the first half of the Bears game, and Tyreek Hill's running wide open. So part of that is attributed to the coaching staff. And then we talked about Bradley Chubb. Can the Browns handle him on the edge? Because I think if they do, then they'll be in a position to have success offensively.
Yeah, the other thing that kind of jumped out, I saw most of that game, and when we had talked, it seemed like the Dolphins threw over the middle of the field a bunch, like a lot, to Hill and Waddle, and they were finding spots in the middle of the field that were like, that can't happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's part of Tua not having the strongest arm. It's easier to throw over the middle. But that makes me think of John Johnson III and Grant Delpit and linebacker Deion Jones better be on top of their games, right? They better have the right drops, the right coverages, because if you're stressed in the middle of the field, then that's a lot about the middle linebacker and the safeties.
Yeah, and keep in mind the Bears traded away Roquan Smith, and so the drops were not working out for him. Scott Petrak, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, Steve.
Scott Petrak, make sure you check him out. Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also check him out on brownzone.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. They just keep winning. Beat the Lakers yesterday. We'll hear from LeBron James on the Cavs. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers, won their 8th straight game, now 8-1 on the year. Cavs were down 6 at halftime to the Lakers yesterday. They had allowed Los Angeles to score 64 points in the first half. They won their 8th straight. In the second half, they limited LA to just 36 points. Let's head into the Cavs locker room and listen as they award the Junkyard Dog chain. It was introduced last February, given out after a win to the player who most fully personifies the scrap mentality and intensity the team is aiming for.
Okay, because we know what we're capable of and we're trying to build those habits. All right? Sure. Over here. Okay, thanks. It ain't in there. Hey now! Hey now! Hey! This is unprecedented Junkyard Dog history. I'm telling you this right now. Hey! After that halftime speech, we're giving it to John No, he definitely does. He got the all threes. He got the all three. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
With that, let's welcome in Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Sam, I absolutely love it. Another indication of how the team responds to their head coach.
Well, he certainly deserves it, right? I mean, you think about what he probably said at halftime, because the Cavs just weren't playing, as he says a lot, Cleveland Cavaliers basketball, which tends to focus on, the defensive side when things aren't working. It almost seemed like, as teams can be when they get to Los Angeles, a little bit starstruck, and not just because of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, but you also have all those stars sitting in the stands as well. So anytime you play the Lakers, I think JB's message was, look, they've got all the glitz and all that stuff, but this year we're the better basketball team. And we need to go out and prove it. We're going to do that by defending, bending our knees, shuffling our feet, and getting after it. And sure enough, the Cavs came out in the third quarter, responded to their coach, and played their style of basketball that's really been working very well in the early season.
Yeah, and again, for a young team, he just seems to know exactly how to deal with this group.
Yeah, it's not only a young team, but a team that really kind of is new when you add in a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who I think has been better than the Cavs even expected already, just because he's kind of taken his game up another level, even from last season when he was with the Jazz or when he was with, a three-time All-Star, just the way he's scoring and taking over games. And he's almost like the Cavs' Nick Chubb. He can get wherever he wants on the floor without too much, doesn't need a lot of picks. He can do it individually, yet he stays within the team concept. So really, when the Cavs turned it around there in the third quarter, it was truly a team-wide effort. And then as the game got close or stayed close, the Cavs were staying close, then you had Mitchell and Darius Garland taking over, and I suspect we're going to see a lot more of that this season.
You tweeted this out yesterday. So for the first time since March 29th of 2011, Cavs have defeated a LeBron James-led opponent. 8 straight wins overall. So again, that means more probably to the Cavs fan base than anything.
Yeah, and I think it means a little something to the franchise because, you go in and you continuously lose to LeBron James. It really would have been a disappointment yesterday in the sense that the Cavs truly are the better team this season. And I wrote this in my column, Dave, and this isn't an insult towards LeBron. But if you look at it now, the way through these first 8-9 games, Donovan Mitchell is the better player. He's a better player than LeBron James is right now. And when you're the Cavs, you don't want to lose a game like that where you're the better team. You've got the best player on the floor probably, other than maybe Anthony Davis. It would be a disappointment to go in and lose to a team that, at the times 2-6, really struggling to find their way in the Lakers. And just to go in there and lose to that team would have been a disappointment, first of all. But then, yes, to lose to LeBron James again, it just wouldn't have been a great look, especially when you had the game that was so close. And frankly, you're the superior team. You've shown that all year. And I really think them winning in Los Angeles against LeBron is like a huge lift off their shoulders to make them realize, we are the team that we say we are. And we're not going to be intimidated by anybody, even the guy who came to Cleveland and helped us win a championship in 2016. I think that was really a big psychological lift to a team that otherwise has been coasting anyway.
And you know what? LeBron James talked about what he saw from the young Cavs on the court.
Listen, they did a great job in the offseason of picking up a big-time players. I mean, obviously, between them in New York, and a lot of people were kind of just seeing who was going to be able to get it done. But I think we saw last year what team that they could become, and obviously what Evans injury and Darius' injury, they end up slipping towards the end and happened to play in the play-in, and we knew what happened with that. But they have a really good team and a great coach, well-balanced, and a bunch of kids on their team that just seem like they just want to play ball, and that's, you don't see. I'm looking at their roster. You don't really see too many guys all over social media, showing off they got this and showing off they got that. Seem like a bunch of guys that just like come to work and just want to play ball, and that's definitely probably a joy for a coach and a coaching staff like that. Just know you got a bunch of kids that want to come in and play ball, and then a grandpa who looks over everybody, and Kevin Love. So that's great.
You couldn't resist the dig at Kevin Love there, but I would imagine this is a team J.B. Bickerstaff really enjoys coaching.
Dave, a few years ago when the San Antonio Spurs were really good with Duncan and Ginobili and Parker, I asked Greg Popovich, it seems like you have guys whose really only focus during the season is basketball. And LeBron is exactly right. He said, you don't see a lot of these guys on social media tooting their horn or making a big deal or making a big stink or creating controversy. Everybody's pretty grounded. And Greg Popovich said something that I think applies to this team. He says, we go out and get guys who have gotten over themselves, and that kind of is really fitting of this club. They have a lot of talent. They've got a lot of promise. They're having a lot of success in the early season, but they're letting their play speak for itself on the court. And there's not a lot of, and in the locker room, they're very tight. You're not seeing a bunch of drama surrounding this team like you are seeing involving some other franchises that also had high expectations. When you look at Cavs, Milwaukee, some of those other teams, Golden State, even though they had the practice fight and they're not having a lot of success right now, during their runs to the titles, the Warriors have not had, those type of dramas. So I think that counts for a lot. I think you give J.B. Bickerstaff a lot of credit there. Obviously, Kobe Altman a lot of credit. And the players themselves, they quality individuals who want to win as a team. Even though I said Mitchell can take over a game, he still does it within the team concept. And I think that's a big secret behind their success.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we continue talking Cavs, some tiers and rankings. Where do the Cavs sit in the national media's eyes? We'll have that straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. We've talked a lot about Donovan Mitchell. Check this one out. Mitchell has scored 251 points this season, the third highest total in NBA history by a player in his first 8 games with a new team. Keep in mind, Mitchell did miss one of the Cavs' first 9, so it's 251 in 8. Sam, the other thing that you pointed out before we went to break, yeah, he scores a lot, but he's doing it within the concept and framework of what J.B. Bickerstaff wants him to do for the team.
Yeah, and he does it so much that JB Bickerstaff has even said, he's kind of out there doing his thing, Mitchell is, but when it comes right down to it, he just refuses to let us lose. And that's where he's taking over games, getting to his spots, getting shots up. But every other time he is playing within the team concept, and you don't want to say it's to a fault because the Cavs have a lot of other good players and it's working. So, I think a lot of it is, he's doing all this and scoring all these points. He had the one bad game. I wouldn't even call it a bad game. He didn't score as much against the Knicks a couple weeks ago. The Cavs didn't play really well, although they played very well in the fourth quarter, and Mitchell led the way in that. So, even though he's scoring all these points, which are just fantastic, I think he's better than the Cavs suspected he would be this soon with a new ball club. I think a lot of people are surprised that he's having this much success this early, having to be integrated with new teammates and a new coaching staff and new philosophy, new coaching philosophy. It's really been something to watch. And to me, right now he's in the contention for NBA MVP, obviously very early, but if he continues at this pace, you got to put him up there with Giannis Antetokounmpo and maybe Kevin Durant or a couple others. But right now he's just been one of the top 2-3 most dynamic players in the league.
This is from The Athletic, NBA Power Rankings. They do it by tiers. So Tier 1 are the contenders. They have the Bucks at 1, the Suns at 2. Tier 2, the brink of contention. Cavs are number 3. They were previously 4th. Transition offense, 119.7 points per 100 possessions, tied for 5th. Transition defense, 105.7 points per 100 possessions, 10th. They're ahead of the Celtics. Celtics are currently 4th. Fair assessment of where they sit, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think The Athletic nailed it. It was, look, you've got the Bucks who have won their first 9 games heading into the night, and the Cavs who are winning not only very impressively, beating the Celtics twice, the defending Eastern Conference champions twice, including once on their court. You go into Detroit without Garland and Mitchell, both injured for that game, and you win by a landslide. And look, winning in the NBA, granted the Pistons are struggling, but winning on the road in the NBA is a tall task wherever you are. And you didn't have your backcourt all-stars. So I would say, they're right there on the brink. The way that they're playing right now, it just shows you that they have an understanding now of how to win games. Last year, if they had played the Lakers like they played them yesterday in the first half, I don't think anybody would have suspected they would come back to win. I was sitting there watching, and I think that the Cavs themselves were probably thinking, look, we're only down. We haven't played very well against the Lakers. We're only down 6 at halftime. We should win this game. And they came out. Not only did they go on a big run in the third quarter, but they turned those final 4 minutes into garbage time in Los Angeles. So I would say, brink of contention. They would be the number 1 team in that category without question. That's where they were ranked.
So they do have 3 more games on this road trip, have won the first 2. Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule. So tonight they're back in Los Angeles, same building, playing the Clippers. Then they have the Kings and then the Warriors before returning home. What do you think they want to see? What does JB Bickerstaff want to see on this road trip? You mentioned winning on the road's never easy. They're out in L.A. or California, to be accurate, for the next couple of days.
Yeah, obviously you want to win all of them. I think the bigger thing is knowing that you're not going to go 81-1. The bigger thing is just keep doing what you're doing. Make the other team beat you. Don't beat yourself. You don't want to get into that habit. So, if the Golden State Warriors beat you, it's because they were just better on that night. If the Sacramento Kings beat you, the Clippers, any of those teams, any game you lose, you want it to be because the other team played exceptionally well. And that's really what, if you're going to beat the Cavs, that's what the message has to be. That's what other opponents have to think is they're not going to beat themselves. They're not going to lay down and die. We've got to go out and take it to them and, get hot, have a hot night to beat them. And I think if JB Bickerstaff and the players and those guys, losses are going to be disappointing, but there's going to be plenty more of them this season. You're not going to go, like I said, you're not going to go 81-1. So you will have some losses here. Have the other team beat you. Look, the first game, the one game they lost, that's what happened. Toronto just did all the right things in the fourth quarter and still ended up barely beating the Cavs. Otherwise, they'd be 9-0.
Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. As always, Sam, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much. All right, Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Make sure you check him out. Hoopswire.com, all things Cavs, also great stuff on the entire NBA. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.